also on social media. I'm going to go ahead and do an introduction of Eli for those of you who have met him or have not met him yet, and then he'll go ahead and be our speaker for the day. Eli Block is a teacher and trainer of the Eros philosophy and content on the platform. Born to a psychologist and a Zen Buddhist, he has meditated since childhood. As a lead instructor of the men's program, he is passionate about realigning our understanding of gender, sexuality, and orgasm with nature. His mission is to help people connect more deeply with their authentic selves and experience greater intimacy. Eli is one of our senior practitioner and also senior instructors on the platform. He has been studying the practice for 15 years now, I believe, Eli?
About 17.
17 years.
Time flies.
Time really does fly. I'm very happy to introduce you guys to Eli, who is also a very good friend of mine. Take it away, Eli.
Thanks, Ia. I love when you introduces me. Um, Hi, everyone. So I was thinking last week I did kind of a version of my origin story, which went a little deeper into where I came from and what my roots were. And I think kind of like what was my like karmic disposition to have found orgasmic meditation? Because I think everyone has some kind of there's some if you look through a certain angle and aperture at your past, you'll see like what exact thing brought me to this place. And you know there are all kinds of ideas about how all that stuff works. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to do this talk series as a how would you say, like a maybe like a mini anthology of like my formative moments in as like an erotic practitioner, like the moments that I feel like, you know more than others, you know changed me, or had me see something different. I have many, and so I'd like to tell you guys about one today, if that's okay. I'll keep doing this, but these stories, I think, you know, stories really are our wealth to a certain extent, and we have so much choice around how we cast things. But this one's a little more straightforward. So for those of you guys who didn't join us last week, I'll just catch you up a little bit. So I started oming in 2000, I think January of 2009, and had been around One Taste for a while beforehand. Eventually, learned about the practice, decided after a decent while that I wanted to learn it. And within about, I don't know, a few months of learning, I also was starting to see all this crossover between what I was doing in oming and the Dharma teachings that I'd grown up with. My parents are Zen Buddhists. They met at a Zen Buddhist retreat in California, San Francisco Zen Center community. My dad spent like 5 years at Tassajara Zen Mountain Center, where I spent, my summers as a kid quite often. And, that was a really big part of my upbringing. And so when I found One Taste, it was sort of like, I was always the person who understood spirituality or meditation or these, various principles. And I kind of was, and all the other kids, like at summer camp or college or whatever, were always kind of, interested in me. I had something cool to offer. Coming to One Taste, I didn't really have anything that they needed or wanted. They had something I wanted. And it was, access to philosophy and it's deeper than thought. It's a felt frequency that the erotic practitioner carries into the world. And all I knew at the time was I just want to be around that. Something really feels good about these people. It wasn't a slick way they were talking, because let me tell you, they were not slick. These were not slick people. In fact, it was kind of the opposite of slick. It was, which was also kind of just, attractive. It was the honesty, and not sort of like in the tell the truth and sort of a simple on the spot kind of way. It was a really deep and wide honesty about life, which I really appreciated when I first started coming around. So fast forward 2014, both of my mentors have left the company. So the two men who were uh, left the company and left the, really the path that I was on. And that left, this void in our men's program and in our orgasmic meditation practice. And those are both two things that I loved, even despite the fact that I had been incredibly resistant to taking the men's program when I was first coming to One Taste. I was like, that's for some other loser. That is not for me. Well, I started teaching it at that point in 2014 and kind of changed my life actually. And I think it's really one of my most favorite things I've ever done. But before I taught the men's program and before I stepped into my role as the lead orgasmic meditation instructor, male orgasmic meditation instructor, I took a program called the Intensive. Nicole Daedone had done several, smaller programs over the years. She would do week-long retreats. It was like anything else. And at one point they said, okay, she said, I want to do something longer and deeper. I want to do like a 2 week retreat. I want to get a house, like a property in Los Angeles. And I want it to be that people can really steep in practice. I want people to be able to wake up, meditate, do yoga, and om. And I want to work with people as they become, progressively more open to, whatever you'd call it, evolution or getting whatever their internal work was that they needed. And that sounded great to me. And I should say it sounded great to me after a while. It did not sound great to me initially because who does that sound great to? If you know Nicole, you're kind of like, Jesus Christ, I'm gonna step into it with 2 weeks with this person. It's like going into a wild animal sanctuary for 2 weeks. Like you don't know what's gonna happen. And just on a like what am I going to see? What is she going to point to in this experience that I currently can't see, and do I want to see it because it is going to change me? So fast forward, we're in the experience, we're in the retreat. It's like, 24 people in the program. A bunch of my friends are in it. And we're all going around and she's kind of it's sort of the beginning of the program. Maybe it's like 3 or 4 days in. And she's asking, what did you come here for? We're doing a round of like, she's like, just tell me something. What's on your mind? And it gets to me. And I said something kind of like, because like, what's on your mind before you're really responsible person in this world? It's like, there's women throwing themselves at you all the time. There's the orgasmic meditation practice. It's sort of like, there's lots of ways to kind of just get by, at One Taste, or where for a while you could get by. People would notice after a while. And so I said, what did I come here for? Well, I want to learn how to be a really great stroker. I want to learn how to be really good with women or something, just something that I wanted and like the end of the sentence was like, so that it was like that kind of mind, so that I could get something, right? And I think she kind of knew that that was not really the deepest thing that I could offer. And she played with me, as she often does. And I said that, and immediately she went like this. And she started talking to the woman at the end of the circle. I was like in the middle, and she like, went way back. And she said to this woman, she said, I'm not going to use her real name, but she said, wow, she goes, Sarah, those are great glasses. Are those new? And woman's like, oh yeah, those are I just got these, Warby Parker or whatever. Oh, those are great. They complement your face so well. And did you get your hair cut before you came here? And they just had a whole like gal pal conversation. And I'm sitting over there. I'm just sitting in a chair and I'm just like, what? And I realize, oh, I've seen this before. She's letting me get my shit together. That is what is happening. Is this is actually a moment of grace to take the attention off of me, and then she's gonna come back. And what am I gonna say? And so I got, as I sort of chuckled to myself, okay, all right, all right, all right, But I didn't quite know what I was gonna say. And just an aside here, I realized there's a little setup that I didn't do earlier. I gotta do a little setup for you guys. One of Nicole's teachers was a gentleman named Ray Vetterlein. And he was a former like union contract negotiator in somewhere in South San Francisco. And he ended up, learning about a predecessor practice to orgasmic meditation. But he was like really like a fabulous, not just teacher, but he managed to be like Nicole's teacher and stroker and lover and like all of these things that she talks about readily. And they had this like incredibly fluid dynamic relationship where they could inhabit all these different roles together. And she really credits him with kind of like helping her like kind of grow into the next version of herself. And I'd always been fascinated with him. He had died before I was really like, I think particularly involved to the point where I would have met him. But he was always an intriguing figure, and I always felt sort of some kind of connection to him in some way. So back to the circle. So she eventually finishes her little aside with this woman, and she slowly turns her head back to me. It gave me a lot of room. And she just kind of looked at me, kind of down the bridge of her nose. And I said, it just came out. It was like a bubble coming out. Like, it was, oh, like, what is this? And I said to her, um, I want the transmission of ray through your body. And it was like my whole face turned like bright red. And I was like, oh my God, I don't even know. It was a moment of being truly out of control. But it was kind of like I really mustered it, guys. I'm telling you, I sort of it was sort of like I prayed for it, and then it happened. I didn't do that really consciously. I swear to God. And before the words were even fully out of my mouth, she nodded. She just started nodding, and she already knew she could. She was like, she said, "Yes, yes, that we can do." And it was just this, but I was totally out of control. I felt naked, naked as a jaybird in this room. And she said, "Okay, we'll get you the training. We'll get you the training. Next time," she said, "next time I go to see Diane, who's Ray's widow," she said, "next time I go to see Diane, you'll come and we'll start your training." And I was just like, kind of just like, whoa, did that really just happen here? Like, oh my God. And it was sort of like, I had suddenly, like, the way in my mind it was like all the class was sort of here. And I suddenly went, boop, 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 and like ran ahead of everybody in a certain way. Not in terms of what I had said, because that was right for me. It wasn't right for everybody else. But like, I kind of like, put my stake in the ground and was just sort of now enjoying everyone else trying to figure out what they wanted to say. Like I'm good. I did it.
Yeah.
And trust me, there were many other things which came up during that retreat, but like that was it. So I was sitting pretty. I was sitting pretty. I thought, oh, I got so much training coming to me. Oh, this is going to be so much fun. You know, where will we go? What will we learn? Nicole and I, Diane, what magic words am I going to learn? You know, and for the rest of that retreat, I would have these dreams, and I don't have like I have dreams, but rarely do I feel like I'm being like ushered somewhere through a dream. But the dream was, I'm just gonna go total tripper with you guys and tell you the dream. So I was at this table, like in a basement somewhere, but one of those basements that's kind of like big breezy curtains, like light white, kind of almost like veil-y curtains that could blow really easily in the wind, like leading out to a sliding door in like a backyard. And so it was almost like after a party. It was that feeling of after a party. And there's these long tables in this basement with white tablecloths. And I didn't even know at the time, but Ray's whole thing was sort of like white everything. And there was like, these flowers. Anyway, and I just remember describing it to her, and she's like, that really was like how it would have been, you know. So something's really kind of like in me from this experience. Fast forward, a month goes by. And look, Nicole's running the company. She's teaching all these things, she's, meeting all these people. The woman's crazy busy. And so I'm like, month goes by, no training. No big deal. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. There's lots to do. Got to make the sales goal, blah, 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 blah. 2 months go by, no training. Okay, all right. It's on my mind. It's not like on my mind a lot, It was plenty of time. What's the rush? 3 months go by, no training. I'm like, okay, I think it's Nicole is again, she's got a million things going on. She's kind of like a right here, right now person, regardless. So she's not gonna like remember. She did not put it in her calendar. Let me tell you that. And eventually I was like, okay, I just have to talk. I just have to message her. So I text her and I said, hey, can we, I was remembering that training conversation we had, the intensive, I don't want to intrude. I don't want to, she said, oh, no, 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 no. I'm so glad you said something. I'm so glad you said something. Let's set it up. I'll be in San Francisco next month. You can come with me. We'll go see Diane for lunch. And I was like, oh, that was easy. Great. Okay. So that time rolls around and we're in San Francisco and we're set up for lunch with Diane and it's Nicole and her boyfriend. And so we get in the car and we drive up to the North Bay and we're hanging out at this restaurant, cool little Italian restaurant. And this little, this, woman kind of shuffles in and she's wearing a cute little hat and, introduced me to her. Oh, this is Diane. And I'm sitting there and guys, I have my notebook, I have my pen, I'm ready. I'm ready to take whenever it's appropriate. I'm ready we're not even just having lunch. We're just, this is it. I'm going to get trained. And we're talking and the conversation's going and she turns to me and she goes, Diane, she turns to me and she goes, so I hear you're interested in learning about Ray. And I said, I really am, and I described this, with Nicole, this thing just came out of my mouth, it was a really big deal. And we're sitting at the table and I said to her, I'm ready. I'm like Studs Terkel, I'm ready to go. And he's a famous journalist. And I said, okay, tell me, what's something you loved about Ray? And she goes, oh, Ray was just so great. He was so great. And the thing about Ray was that if you had a desire, like if you really wanted something, not like a kind of surface level, but if you really wanted it like deep in your bowels, he'd be the first one to get behind you wanting it. That's really what he was about. And I swear to God, you guys, I had a moment of being so transported through time and space back to that chair at the intensive. I'm sitting, and I remember feeling like I was sitting in both places at once, hearing those words, and it suddenly dawned on me. That moment of being in that chair and letting that thing escape and feeling it received so fully because it was real was the transmission. There wasn't some big thing I was going to learn from this woman about what to do or a new old tome, some dusty old book she was going to give me or I would go on to learn plenty more in time between then and now. But it was stunningly obvious that the very thing I had asked for, the transmission of Ray through Nicole's body, she did it right in that she did it the very second I could have it, she gave it to me. And it was just, I just sat there with this notepad and pen in my hand, feeling like a total moron. But I was just sort of dumbstruck. And we just talked and laughed for the rest of the time at lunch. We got back in the car, and there was another intensive going on actually. And we drove back, and on the car ride, I told her, Nicole, I've made a fairly large realization from lunch. And I said what I said to her, and she said, you know the secret. And it's something that it really is. I think that can only be transmitted. I've had so many times since then and now where I've been in someone's presence. And well, actually, I take that back. It hasn't been so many times. There's been some rare times where a certain answering to something that true in someone has come through me beyond what my preferences or personality would have to say about it. It's sort of the best I can nail down about it, about exactly kind of how that went. Um, but I like to share that story because I really do think that's how Eros works. It's a very blue collar, kind of very ordinary, so ordinary that someone looking for something highfalutin or fancy would miss the very hiding in plain sight nature that it is. Now, that's not also to say that, Maya was reminding me of this. I think Mother Teresa has something about it where she says, God's only spoken to me one time and that was enough. And there's also like, I guess there's also some story of someone who sees a woman through a window, and then from then on he just sits, he'll go to that window every day and sit on the stair just for another glimpse. And he may never get one. But that's, I think, on some level how it operates with the feminine is we're offered a glimpse. And my guess is if you're on this call, you've had a glimpse in one way or another. And you get a glimpse and then you just keep showing up. You'll keep showing up just for that glimpse. And so, um, so interesting, right? Ordinary, so easy to miss and so profound. I think that's kind of it, isn't it? So, you definitely do not need to ask me questions about any of the things that I just said, but I wanted to open it up. I teach a lot about Om and the men's work, and I helped do a lot of work on the sutras in various forms and the writing. And anyway, I'm kind of my fingers are in almost every pie around here, and so I wanted to open it up and just make myself available. If anybody wanted to ask anything about this or anything else, you can give us, maybe 15, 20 minutes on the clock, or we'll see how far we go and we'll peak it as we do at the right time. So I wanted to just have that be open and invite you.
Thank you, Eli. What a beautiful story. I was there when all this happened and always happy to get to relive it again through your words. For anybody that has a question or comment for Eli, go ahead and raise your virtual hand and I will call on you. Let me see if we have anything on the chat. Matias, go ahead.
All right, I've got a reflection, Eli. All right. Um, a felt frequency, a geeky honesty about the fullness of life Then the intensive, a wild animal sanctuary fraught with unbidden change and intention. And Nicole, like a tiger, politely playing with the naked jaybird of my personal intentions. I want the transmission of ray through your body. She nodded. Then lunch with Diane, Nicole's number one. Then the realization the tiger's nod was the transmission I asked for. Follow for the roar and pulse.
Beautiful. That was great. You got Yia on Nicole's number one, by the way. You got her nailed.
Thank you, Matias.
Artfully done. Nicely done.
Okay, any other hands? Russell, go ahead.
This is just a reflection, I suppose, but it is speaks to transmission and just gratitude. Um, uh, um, One of the first classes I took was the men's course. I think like a month or so after I'd taken the intro class, and there was a moment in that class where I was able to like be outside myself, looking at myself and have a conversation with myself. I'm not sure exactly how it happened because I don't really think it's a topic in the men's course, but it was sort of like um, I was asking myself, so you want to be intimate with me or you want intimacy? And um, and I said, yeah. And then talking to myself, well, then why would you think I would want to be intimate with someone who was dishonest with themselves or dishonest with me? And it was like, no, you don't know. I've been working on being likable for a really long time. This, I'm getting good at. We want to see the parts that are like vulnerable or messy or human, as it started to turn out. And said, yeah, because that would let me trust you. And I'm like, oh dear, I have a lot of work to do.
Yep,
Um,
I know that moment as well. That I think what you're Russell probably uh there's usually a moment in the men's course where um this guy, Dr. Robert Glover, has this great book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And in the book, one of the things he says is that men have this idea that it's like showing up as, what he call, in the book, sort of operationally defined as like perfect, right? Like unaffectable emotionally or whatever is what's going to have people be impressed with the man. And he says basically, which I relay in the men's course, uh, you can't, he said, women basically that's sort of like kryptonite because what will end up happening is we can't relate to something. We can't be attracted to something that we don't relate to. And no one can relate to that. And to a woman doesn't look at that dude and is like, oh, I can relate to that. There's nothing to relate to. And so there's no attraction. And so it's sort of this moment of like, oh no. Like, oh no. Like that, I built this whole thing here, and anyway, that's sort of the moment. It's a great piece of the book. And let me tell you, it's that part of the class is not a crowd pleaser, but you can really you can really smell the smoke coming out of everyone's ears at that point in the course. So
it was memorable, significant.
yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
memorable for me too, Russell. I think about that often. In what way am I not being I want to be understood. Am I being relatable? It's a great question.
Thank you, Russell. Okay, anybody else? Go ahead and raise your virtual hand, or you can just also jump in.
I understand how profound it all is, guys, and we can sit in the silence of it, you know. I'm just playing. I'm playing. I'm playing. I'm playing. I'm playing. But it is kind of, that's a big moment. I could tell another story. Quickie. Oh, Marai.
Yes, Marai, go ahead.
Marai. My,
Hi, Eli.
my playmate.
Finally in direct live.
Hi. Good to see
Hi.
you.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for this whole series and what you shared. It touches like on 3 points or 3 areas at the same time. One is like, oh, where am I settling for this first answer that you gave? And what would I ask for? What is there underneath?
Beautiful.
That's
Beautiful.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Secondly, where do I let my clients or those with whom I engage, like where have we worked on that level? And there's been a transition in the last couple of months. I've actually deleted everything on my website to really let the new thing come through. And so this is, yeah, pointing me towards that's like this, the essential is always what's worth living for. And then thirdly, I know the place of when someone really profoundly asks and something is like pulled through me, which I imagine happened with Nicole. So, the way what you said was, and the deliciousness of that also, like the profoundness of what happens then, and
Terror.
you mean on the receiving end? Oh,
No, I was terrified. I was like, I can't fucking believe I just said that. Yeah.
yeah. And what I meant is like I was switching to Nicole's place. Like there is this intense request,
Yes.
right? And so something can be drawn through her that otherwise wouldn't. And the satisfaction in that.
Yes.
So to be with someone who goes to that place and then what is being pulled through.
One thing I appreciate about you, Marai, is every time you answer one I've seen on various places, you always give it all the layers. I love that about the way you answer these questions.
Thank you. Thank you for seeing me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And then we have Aneka. Did you have your hand up?
It did. Hi. And it felt very similar to what Marai was saying, but I think I'll ask it in my own way because it's a question. Um, and it's actually something that I'm in at the moment. It's like in terms of the path and practice, how does one sort of like drill down to like why you're there, like why you're still there in a way, like a kind of, because I always remember Nicole talking about like spiritual, not spiritual, materialism. Yeah, spiritual materialism. So, it's like there all these things that come up like in the dark for me recently, obviously with everything going on. So there's sort of like I can feel the desire, I can feel the love, and then there's but maybe there's something else you're supposed to be. Maybe there's something else you're supposed to do. A kind of, a tossing and a turning. So wanting to get a sense of what it looks like to really feel the thing that is pulling you on the path, pulling you forward, like really meeting that instead of like all the voices, all the things. So yeah.
Phenomenal
Not the best question, but
Oh no,
yeah,
no,
you
no,
get my
no,
sense.
no.
Yeah.
That's I'm gonna overrule that. That's a phenomenal question.
Oh, thank you.
Because everyone has an agenda with you, you know. Your you know, parents, always want you to do something else so that maybe you'll be happier or your friends don't want you to be a little bit better than them. Everyone's got an agenda, so it's like it's almost impossible to get accurate, honest reflection on a question like that. So you are kind of left often with the inquiry. I hear you. And I mean, hopefully you do find people who can reflect, but that's also in a sense useless if you don't have your own internal sense of that. And I think what I would say there is that you have to become a connoisseur of pain. And you have to be able to determine and have a sense of if you're hurting, right? Because we generally don't move unless we're hurting, right? And so I'll say I'll say something about pain and I'll say something about desire. So on the one hand, there's pain of change, right? Or there's fear of the pain of change. And like if you, and this is similar, this is directly linked with desire. Because it's like, okay, if you're meant to continue to grow or, move in what you would call, a given direction, right? Well, at some point, you're going to have to toss your whole wardrobe out because you're going to need new clothes to inhabit the new person you're going to be. At some point, you're going to have to stop doing that thing that brings you comfort now. At some point, right? And so there's all these progressive at some points. And it's so easy to take any one of those. And this is I think it's so easy, and you can hear it when you talk to people who tell themselves the story. Well, the reason I had to, do it different or go the other way or take an easier, softer way is because, well, it wouldn't have been possible, or whatever people tell themselves, right? And so to me, it's been a matter of having to be willing to really feel quite a bit of pain and to become intimate with what is this pain about, really? Right? Because if you're also supposed to be doing something else, that's going to be painful to not do it. Whatever it is you're doing, you're all of a sudden going to be breathing air that you can't respirate. Right? I remember leaving my job at Apple. I just walked in one day and suddenly I could feel it. I could feel it. I was out of phase with the entire building. I walked in the back room and it's like a slow motion from a TV show where like I walked in the back room and it's like the guy with the clipboard was doing the guy with the clipboard thing. And the inventory specialist was counting all the boxes. And it was like all of a sudden I walked into a stage play. And I was like, oh my God, but I'm an actor. I don't belong. I'm not like in the play. I can play this, but I was like, no, no, no. Like, this is the moment. This is my whisper right here. This is the whisper. And so I literally just went to the manager's office. I said, I think I'm done. I said, I knew it. And this is, whatever, 9 months after the coaching program or into the coaching program at One Taste. And frankly, God bless her heart. That's the only level Nicole operates at. I'll say this as many times as many people want to hear it. She is terrifying to people because that's the only place she lives is in that location. And if you've ever met her or worked with her or whatever, what I'm saying is true. That you try to pass off anything above that altitude with her, it's not going. You know what you'll get? You'll get, if she doesn't care about you that much, she'll be like, that sounds great. And you'll leave being like, did she buy it? And you're like, I don't think she bought it. So like, what was that? Right? Or you'll get, and then you leave you with yourself. And that's just who she is. So anyway, so there's that one. And then the desire piece. Here's the other one. On the desire side, you have to be able to discern. And again, this is just two sides of the same coin. you have to be able to discern whether just because you're going from point A to point B does not mean it is desire at all. At all, at all, at all. Just because someone is moving has nothing to do with desire. Those things are that is a false implied correlation, that those things have to be the same, connected. They can be entirely mutually exclusive. In the same way that there can be literally no sensation in a sexual act. It's like there's no rule that says this has to be inhabited with presence. So on the desire side, the difference to cultivate, the felt sense to cultivate, is between going towards something and running from something. Because there's a lot of people who will appear as if they are so in touch with their desire. Oh my God, I'm so in touch with my desire. I want this and I want this. Well, the crazy thing about desire is that usually it's a pretty long game when desire is involved. And so that kind of, spoke jumping, so to speak, is like spokes on a bicycle wheels, where the phrase comes from, moving from spoke to spoke, does not necessarily imply, in fact, it may inversely. Well, let me put it this way. It may imply desire, but in a totally counterintuitive way than you might think. Because no one, until you do settle down into what you're actually being called to do, that is exactly what you will do. Because compensatory alternatives are plentiful and easy. And so it's like, this is when we talk about putting on like erotic glasses or erotic goggles, or getting your eyes on, as Michael Pollan would say about, Shintaro mushroom hunting from, I think, Omnivore's Dilemma. Like, that's what we're talking about. And that's what is it that people who are in Eros, it's not just marketing. There's a there. And there is a way to see the world from the bottom up that is erotic. That's what we do. It's all we've ever done.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great question.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions, comments, reflections? Go ahead and raise your hand. Russell, yes, welcome back.
Welcome back, Russell. It's been a long
Welcome back. It was I just want to underscore the scope change that happens when it happens. And I mean, the sense of, being outside yourself and being able to see yourself, that whole quality is part of just being able to see other people at all, or just being able to see further than the narrow blinders that I grow up with, thinking that it's all about me, or this is what I need. And then I'm just grateful for and sort of humbled by the fact that there's actually so much going on, and that unfolding that you can do when this is me speaking, when I invest in that, gives me surface area for connection. I mean, the very thing, like keeping yourself tight or round or smooth, doesn't let connection happen, because you're what was your word for it? But you're too smooth, you're too polished, and the granularity lets yourself be seen. Or what was yours?
I don't know what you call it, the metaphor that I like using is porousness.
That'll work. Yeah. Anyway, I like the fact that you can, you get the freedom or the permission or the responsibility of being able to see so many mycelium networks at play.
Yeah. I love it, Russell. The reason I would say real quick, the reason I like porous is because it's the immediate implication is that you can exchange with something if you're porous. That's ultimately what it comes down to. There's no way to evolve or to circulate if there's no exchange. And exchange and be changed. That's just how it works.
Cool.
Thanks. Okay, I think we're full, yeah. So I will just quickly say that we're a little bit like, not to like, actually it's a bad analogy, I don't even want to say it. There are some companies that kind of slow roll products and sort of test things and see how things are working. And if you've ever been on the Eros platform, you can kind of see like we like doing a lot of different things. And we like to see what sticks and we like to see what works. We like to see what's the most fun for us. Because that's really everything we do is like an ohm. We discover, where's the sensation? Where does that, what lights people up? What lights us up? And then we gravitate in that direction. And there are courses here on the platform that we've been developing for some time. And we thought it would be fun to make an offer to the people who come on these calls. Okay, this is just a game. We love games. So this is a gamified offer. Okay. If you have been thinking about checking out any of our courses, here is a game for you if you would like to play. The game is you pick any course, you pay for it. You take a 2-week period. You do the course and you review it. You tell us what you think of it. You give us some feedback about what you thought about various parts and whatever you encounter, whatever comes up for you. If you make your goal about when you say you're going to do it, we'll buy the course for you. Not only will we refund your money for the course that you paid for, we'll give you another one on top of it. So if you like a game and you like a little pressure cooker, let us know. And we would love to hear from you because you guys are our eyes and our ears out in the world, and it could be fun. So you can get in touch with just support at erosplatform.com, and I can have a chat with you and we can take it from there.
All right, thank you, Eli. So for those of you who are interested, go ahead and pop your name into the chat, and then Hannah will go ahead and take your information and Eli will contact you. It is a fun and great opportunity to start taking some courses on the Eros platform. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Come back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern with Emmett Farley. He's going to be giving us some really great transmission on Eros.
The Emmett talk is going to be awesome, you guys. Come for that. It's going to be a good one. I know what he's going to do. It's going to be really good.
Yes. All right, everybody.